What am I? Best answer, we are a superorganism. Part 1. Liquidation of our individualism. Welcome back to Beyond Psychology. Arbitrarily Adam here. Make sure your helmets are securely fastened and you've got your towel tightly clutched. This may get a little bit mind-rapey. Normally I make an introduction video / disclaimer, but I'm going to try and squeeze this in to the first video. Like usual, I remind everyone to be up to date on the prerequisite material, like the introduction to the channel, what school curriculum fails to teach us, and the series on emergent consciousness. If you're all caught up, then let's continue. Additionally, please take note that I'm running a Tier 5 perceptual paradigm right now, and I'm speaking in the coinciding language format, because the majority of our consciousness is at Tier 4 and Tier 5, so I'm speaking to you in the format that everyone is familiar with. Another thing before we get started, it's important to understand that our reality is extremely complicated, and the act of teaching these concepts is also extremely complicated. Without innumerable lectures and education of many sciences, I'm forced to simplify and make analogies. It's good to keep in mind this does hurt the overall accuracy, so don't jump to conclusions. If you think that I'm saying a certain thing, I may not be saying exactly that, and some of my statements are not definite, but rather a field of probability. So if it sounds like I'm stating something as a fact, that may not be the case. Like, this entire concept is not necessarily a fact. It's an abstract idea, and a form of communication is creating a certain picture of it, but we are a largely ignorant species at the moment. So, seeing as most of you are not prepared to put forth 10 or 15 years dedicated time to learning all of the scientific information that supports these concepts, then you're going to have a little bit of perceptual compensation. For those of you who are scientifically literate and or specialists in particular fields, don't allow authoritarian versions of supposed facts and interpretation of those facts muddy the waters of our liquid perceptions of reality. A bit of perceptual compensation will be required also. Compromise. Stretch your minds. No matter what we think we know, no matter how much we learn, no matter what we tell ourselves, nobody knows what the universe is, where any of this comes from, or what we are. We must stay calm and face our fears. What this channel is teaching will help us to conquer those fears and understand the physical facts of reality. Again, solace in science. The great unknowns that have plagued us for so long are beginning to melt away. Thanks science and critical thinking for that. In this series, we'll be looking at an alternative for our current perceptual paradigms, examine the origins of our individualism, and observe the harms in this line of thinking, both from a psychological and an ecological perspective. Individualism is an excessively overly simplistic perception of our state of existence. That's right, I'm saying that we are not individuals. To those of us in the Western world, that statement seems completely insane. But there's a large percentage of the world that just says, no duh, also. Don't worry, skeptics. I'm going to propose a very compelling argument, and it will be backed by scientific evidence. First, some simple analogies. We are like the hair on our bodies to the biosphere of our planet. Hairs can have different features and can be exposed to different stimuli because of their locality, but regardless, they are still part of the body. Now let's take a step up in complexity with our analogies. Without complex biological consciousness, the universe does not know that it exists. We serve as its sensory organs, memory storage devices, and, like I said, brain cells. So now an analogy that might be the porridge is just right for understanding. We are like the pondo tree. Now the pondo tree is the largest organism on the planet. That is, if we're going to compartmentalize everything into different species and taxonomy the crap out of everything. Now we will be examining the structuring of our environment and the pondo tree in order to dissolve our perceptual paradigm of individualism. From the perspective of the ecologists, astronomers, and astrophysicists, here we have the soil in this analogy. The soil medium would be the universe, black holes that produce stars, stars that produce planets and then bathe them in charged particles, then of course the planets themselves. There is no separating us from the soil. Without everything that creates that medium, we do not exist. From the perspective of chemists, physicists, geologists, and microbiologists, the roots are the structural geometry, like elements, chemicals, then on to extremely simple building blocks of aminos as well as microorganisms, fungi, etc. From the perspective of geneticists and anthropologists, the upshoots are a phenotype expression of biology of this biosphere of perhaps the universe. It represents a bloodline, as humans like to call it, From the journey through the universe, the tree trunk represents the path taken and the structure as well as the physical space that was taken up along the way. From the perspective of Darwinists, zoologists, and taxonomists, the treetops are what we perceive to be the individual life forms. The structuring of the branches, placement of the leaves, and size, etc. are what we focus on. This compartmentalization muddies the water of our perception. We do not see the forest past the trees. The majority of what exists is not the scope of our view, and we have perceived things in this light for such a long time that our compartmentalizations and theories have become belief. When we treat a theory like a belief, it becomes eerily similar to a religion. That's why I like to keep a certain liquidity to my perceptions. Okay, that's it for part 1. Thanks so much for participating in the thought revolution. And please subscribe, thumb up, and most importantly, share so that we can increase the overall empathy all over the world. Up next in the series, common arguments for individualism will be addressed, and we will examine some of the cultural bias that helps fortify our beliefs. Alright, see you there.